Croeso, welcome to episode 4 of Splashcast, the Swimwells podcast, with me, Daniel Garforth. We've got a bit of a shorter episode today on the pod, but I'm delighted to say I was joined recently by Amy Brumby, Swimwells' Pathway and Sport Development Manager, as well as two Masters swimmers, Nicola Latty and Helen Gorman, to discuss all things Masters swimming. Masters swimming has a huge part to play in aquatics in Wales, as well as a huge part to play in helping Swimwells achieve our goal, our vision of aquatics for everyone for life. We caught up with Helen and Nicola ahead of the Swim Wales Masters Short Course Championships, which took place recently in Llandudno. Hi guys, how's everyone doing?
Hi Dan, how are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Thanks for joining us for Splashcast. Good to see you both, and great to have an opportunity to talk about Masters swimming on the pod. To start with, Nicola and Helen, wanted to just ask you both basically a little bit about your story and how you both got into master swimming essentially. Nicola, you're first on my screen, so we'll start with you.
Yeah, in my case, I got into it not as early as some. I was probably in my late 20s, early 30s. I did university. I was swimming at a reasonably high level, stopped enjoying the meets themselves, but I just loved to swim. So I carried on getting in the pool and swimming and found that public sessions weren't particularly good for that. So joined clubs. And then the clubs I was with started competing, so I joined with them and started racing and realized how much slower I was swimming quite quickly. Yeah, so that was the shortened version.
Sounds good. Helen?
Um, Maybe a little bit different to Nicola. I When I retired from swimming, I swam at a decently high level. I was doing triathlon and I had a few injuries and I would dip in and out of swimming. So I knew that I still could swim. And then when I got to 40, everyone expected me to do an Ironman because that's what all my friends did. And the thought of running a marathon, let alone running a marathon, after all that swimming and all that cycling, it filled me with dread. So I decided to have a go at doing some master swimming and just seeing how fast I could possibly swim, which I surprised myself after sort of 13 years away from competitive swimming. I didn't have high expectations and actually really surprised myself. So it was kind of the challenge that got me into it. But what kept me in it was the fact that I joined a club and I'd got a lot of new friends, and not only had I got those new friends, but I could connect with old friends like Nicola that I'd not seen. Not that you're that old, Nicola, but
Yeah, thanks.
I could connect with people that I'd swum with when I was younger, which that's what kept me in it. I hadn't intended to stay in master swimming. I hadn't intended to still be swimming, age group swimming, that is for sure.
Mm. Nicola, just picking up on a point that you said and linking also with what Helen's just told us there. You mentioned that you stopped enjoying those age group level meets and competitions that you were attending, but that both of you seem to still really be enjoying the Masters competitions. What are the differences between those two then? What makes you enjoy the Masters so much more?
I think for me, I was putting an awful lot of pressure on myself to swim fast at the sort of the mainstream meets, whereas in Masters, it's great when I do swim well, but if I don't, I still enjoy the atmosphere with friends at those competitions. And I don't think there's really that expectation from anyone, let alone myself. So yeah, just go there and enjoy it.
Yeah, how about yourself, Helen? Do you find a similar thing as well?
Probably a little bit different. I love doing age group races. I feel like there's no pressure on me because I'm the old lady and I'm not expected to beat anybody. And I do put quite a lot of pressure on myself at Masters, but the environment itself is a lot less pressured. The one thing that I does my head in at age group meets is the marshalling. The fact that you have to sign in like 8 times, yes, fill the register. Like I've not gone missing since the last set of chairs. I just find that bizarre. It's a good chance to chat to people, but yeah, in Masters you just kind of turn up behind the block and you have a chat with the keeper or the other swimmers that are waiting, and you just get on with it. And if you don't turn up, no one really cares. Like it's your responsibility, and I think I like that extra level of kind of self motivation and self organization. And you got to turn up and you got to do it, and it's much more. It is a lot more laid back. Definitely a lot more laid back, and the warm ups are a lot less busy as well.
I think picking up from that, Helen, I think you're not a real master swimmer until you've missed an event by talking.
Part of the initiation, is it, Nicola?
It is, it's required, yeah.
Have you?
Um, I probably haven't actually, not yet, but there's always a first. Could be at the Welsh.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah.
We'll be
I
looking
do.
out for it.
I do know people that have. I do know people on the Masters working group who've missed events because they were talking.
Amazing. I was going to ask about what the sort of benefits and what your favorite things about Masters swimming are. I think we've covered some of them already. But I guess for anyone listening who maybe doesn't know much about Masters, hearing about how different the competitions are and what the atmosphere is like in clubs, are those sort of two of the best things about Masters swimming, would you say?
I think it is for me. It is the friendships, the connections, the relaxed meets. I think you get a really supportive atmosphere. I swim 200 butterfly, and it's not so much that you're competing against each other, but you're really supporting each other to make it to the end of the race, preferably without being disqualified. And I think there might be a similar thing that goes on with the breaststroke swimmers and that camaraderie that you get across there. I think the other part for me is the going on trips, whether that's within the UK or elsewhere, and exploring new places with friends that you meet, and also meeting friends from other countries that you see at the international meets over and over. I think that's really the main areas that I enjoy within the sport.
Amazing. Anything, Helen? Any other thoughts on that? On the
I kind of
camaraderie?
yeah, I kind of answered that really. I mean, the main reasons I swim are the sort of friends, the connections, the community, lifestyle, and fitness. And certainly when got into master swimming and I had an extremely busy working life, I had no structure. I'd stay in the office till 9 or 10 at night. I'd eat cereal for dinner and get up the next morning and repeat. And actually needing to be at a pool because people expected me to be there and to train. I really value that kind of routine. It's what I had when I grew up. I was used to fitting in swimming before school, after school, around homework if I ever did any of that. So actually, it was kind of what I was used to, and I think I just felt that that's what my natural state was to need to be at a pool and to need to train and to have teammates that expected to see me and have that camaraderie. And I think it's much more that than the actual competition in many respects. It's the day-to-day lifestyle and then enjoying being fit and healthy.
Amazing. And what would your message be to anyone who maybe is watching or listening to this, isn't in a Masters club or a Masters swimmer, maybe didn't know about it, maybe is thinking about it? How can they get involved, and what would your message be to them?
It's an interesting one. I think there's lots of different people out there with different different goals. Some will be looking for a club atmosphere. Some might be looking for more of a swim fit style atmosphere where it's more of a training group that gets together. It really is check it out in your area, and I think an element really of contacting Swim Wales if they've got any connections or anything that so they can get people in contact with each other. Um, yeah, it's not always easy. There are some challenges within the various areas within Wales for getting into masters swimming. So it is about perhaps asking, and I do think you guys at Swim Wales are probably in a good position for putting us all in contact with each other sometimes if you're all contacting the local clubs.
Absolutely. And Helen, you've mentioned the working group there a moment ago. What other opportunities are there, maybe as well as competing or training? What other opportunities can Masters swimming and Masters environments provide for people?
Yeah, I mean, I think people that are considering masters, they shouldn't be looking necessarily at the times that the fastest people are doing or looking at the records. I think um, get yourself in shape in a public session and maybe volunteer to come down to one of the. I mean, there's not a ton of masters meets in Wales. There's the short course championships in Llandudno. There's the long course championships in Swansea in March. I do wish there were a few more because those ones are always very very busy, very popular. But we're always needing warm-up marshals, timekeepers, just general helpers. So come along and see what it's about because it isn't about the people that are winning everything. It's about everybody competing together and just the general atmosphere. And you might not want to swim, but you might want to get involved. And there's quite a lot of different roles. And I spoke at the English short course championships in Sheffield that took place recently. I spoke to the commentator, and she's got a brilliant voice. She's really enthusiastic. Everybody loves her. She's there for 3 days calling out every single record. And I asked her how she got involved, and she works in IT. She just wanted to volunteer. She just loves her job, and she looks forward to it. And so, yeah, there's just so many roles that people can do. And it's not just about winning races. That's really kind of, it's not irrelevant. I mean, it's important to me to win a race, but it's not the be all and end all. It's not the reason why people go to meets. It's, being part of a community is massive, and particularly as you get older. If you're recovering from an illness or an injury, or you've lost your partner or whatever, in the future you can come back and you've got a whole family of people that actually really care about you and look out for you. So yeah, there's so many reasons, and there's so many different aspects of the sport. It really isn't about doing a 200 fly or winning a race. So yeah, just give it a go.
I think there's a really nice example of that I'm going to put Nicola on the spot for now. With I can remember that she's recently recovered from an injury. Nicola, tell us a little bit about your experience with that, how the community helped support you, and how your events looked a little bit different from the fly that you normally swim.
Yeah, I ended up with a shoulder injury. I'd actually already entered some races when it occurred and did them doing kick. You guys very kindly switched my entry times and my events so that I could swim in the right ones, and just did backstroke events as kick. From a recovery standpoint, I mean, Helen was one person who came up here and took care of me and did the things that I couldn't do with one arm after I'd had surgery. But again, just having the support of people, and no one really, again, worried about performance. It was more about being there and seeing friends. And I went to a couple of meets where I didn't even swim, but I just went and met back up with friends. And that meant a lot to do that.
Sounds like that's been one of the real benefits for both of you, during this master's journey, is that sense of community and the friendships that you've made that have come out of it, which is a fantastic thing, alongside the swimming and the high standard that both of you do continue to compete at. Helen, I just wondered if you could talk a little bit more about, some of the different experiences you've had actually in the pool and competitions you've attended.
I like to race a lot. So I still race at age group level. I suppose most people that watch this, if they know me, will know me from racing regionals and Welsh Championships and things like that, and some of the meets in Cardiff. But masters wise, I've competed national level and internationally, and I think that's one of the massive pluses really, is that who goes to South Korea on holiday? Does anybody, particularly South Korea, where it's just industrial, they make cars. And Nicola and I both swam at the World Championships there, and I've got fantastic memories. And that one was really important to me because we went out there in August in 2019, and my mum had died in June. And actually, I just remember laughing the whole time I was there, and not having laughed for quite a while. We were just silly, and if you won a medal, you won one of these mascot things, these little otters, and we're making stupid videos. I mean, you're just away from home. You're not at work. You're not necessarily with your whole family. You're just with a bunch of friends, and it's kind of like going away on camp from school or something. That's the level of behaviour most of us manage. But yeah, it's just fun, and we're all supporting each other. You're in another country. Not a lot of people spoke English, so we really did stick together. So that was Gwangju, but we've also competed in Budapest, which is an incredible swimming city. The World Short Course is going there in December, and it's really nice to think, hey, there's the pool, and I swam in that pool, and I know where the changing rooms are, and I know what it's like. I know the location. I remember the great ice cream shops and the pizza restaurants, and just kind of having that connection with the elite end of the sport, even though we're competing at our own level. And travel, I've already booked my trip to the Worlds next year in Singapore, which is a place I've always been interested to go and see. So yeah, that opportunity to travel is pretty important.
That's amazing to hear. I'm going to put you both on the spot now on the back of that. What's the best pool or country you've swam in?
I think it's Budapest.
Yeah.
We had for Worlds there in 2017, the competitions were in 4 different pools. Two were outdoors, two were indoors. It's at the Duna Arena. I didn't actually race in the main pool. Didn't get lucky enough to do that. So the World Masters is going back there in 2027. Hopefully, I might get a swim there. But yeah, I mean, it's just the whole city, the country of Hungary. They love swimming. They love swimmers. And every time you went into a restaurant or a cafe, they'd be like, "Hey, you a swimmer? How did you get on?" Just that real level of interest, and yeah, I've not really experienced that before.
Yeah, I think in my case it's quite interesting. Rome was pretty impressive. The pool on the main site was outdoors, and a fantastic pool, but also indoors they had sort of just really ornate pools. There are a couple of them. One was a 50-meter pool that we got to use for warm up and swim down. But one a lot didn't know about was up about 4 flights of stairs. And it was a 25-meter pool that at that time wasn't filled, but again, just a really ornate pool and just a really impressive facility all in all. So that was also a good one. But yeah, you certainly can't argue with Helen about Budapest. It was an absolutely phenomenal meet.
Do you think that the facilities that we've got in Llandudno coming up for our master short course are going to be comparative to those ornate pools in Rome and what you experienced in Budapest?
Almost very similar. Actually, Llandudno's got a great facility as far as we're concerned. We've got it's on the seafront. Again, it covers the ice cream and the fish and chips sort of boxes that are required. But we've got a warm-up swim down facility, which we don't always get at Masters events, so that's really useful for us in that case.
Definitely. Will you both be joining us in Llandudno in a couple of weeks' time?
Of course.
Of course.
Yes.
Of course.
I think, in my point of view, it's important to support the meet being in the north. As Nicola said, it's got the added benefit that Newport doesn't have, is that it has got a swim down facility, which is quite attractive. But for me, from Cardiff to Llandudno, that's a 4-hour drive, and you're doing it in December, which is dark. But I think it's important to make that commitment, and I'm looking forward to racing.
Absolutely. So moving on there, again, it's almost like we've planned this. You sort of touched on it again, Helen, starting talking about challenges with the distance to get to competitions. Obviously, we've heard a lot of the great stuff about master swimming. Are there any challenges you face, maybe in club, in training, or in competitions within master swimming?
I think the answer is yes. I think if I just speak on behalf of the North, really, we don't have too many masters clubs. I think it might just be the one that's where the members are affiliated with Swim Wales. There are a couple of other masters groups around, but then it tends to be one lane or so within a club. And when we have such a range of capabilities in masters, from youngsters who are potentially massive, strong, to people who might be in their 70s, 80s, 90s, it's really difficult to get, a place to swim for all those people. So yeah, there are a lot of challenges, and I think one of the things we want to try and improve on over the next few years is to improve those opportunities for people so that we can accommodate that complete range of people that we do get within the sport.
I think it's important to note there as well, Nicola, some of the work that you've been doing around para swimming and masters, and some of the different ways that we've managed to engage with, swimmers with Down syndrome or other, para swimmers, and invite them into that environment. So I know that's something you've been proactively working on. If you wanted to share a little bit more information about that.
Yeah, we are quite keen to really open the doors to all people who are master swimmers, and not, there are para categories that have started coming in at some meets. Obviously, you need enough people within there to make that work. But yeah, we've had para swimmers at the last meet that we were in Swansea. And I think it works as an environment for them as a team. It was the British team that came. And I think it works as an environment for them because the way, without the marshalling, etc. It's a bit more relaxed, and I think they quite appreciated it and quite enjoyed it. And so, yeah, we want master swimmers, not just able-bodied master swimmers. We want everybody, and so that's really what we're looking at, trying to accommodate within the setup of our meets as well, and the facilities, and making sure that we're not closing the door on anybody, really.
Amazing. Really important work. I'm gonna come back with another quick fire question. We've talked about the best place you've swum. I also wanted to ask, I think there's going to be some good answers here, about maybe one achievement in your master's career or one experience, maybe of a certain competition that really stands out if you look back and go, yeah, that was really a pinnacle or an amazing thing to be part of or thing to achieve. Big question, I know, but I don't know who wants to take that one first.
Go on, Nicola.
Oh, I'm still thinking. I think I've had a number of them. I mean, even going back to my first international masters meet, I didn't really know about the extent of masters. And I think I'd probably been back about a month or two before I realized I'd broken a British record. Because it just wasn't tuned into that sort of thing. So that was quite nice. Um, I've tended to have a few where I've just got out of that swim and just been absolutely chuffed to bits with how I swam it, and sometimes it's overcoming hurdles. Yeah, a 200 butterfly in Budapest, in fact, Helen, 400 IM in Budapest as well. I was incredibly proud of both of those swims. 400 IM in Rome at the Europeans. So yeah, quite a few for me, if I'm honest.
Amazing.
Helen.
I don't know if I can pick one out. It's really hard. Like, I mean, I'm nearly 52 years old. I've been swimming a long time. To pick out individual swims is quite difficult. I mean, I guess what I'm looking for when I race is that feeling that I'm, not about to die, and you finish strongly, and then you look at the time on the scoreboard and you're happy with it. And when that happens, it's such a good feeling. But you got to accept that that doesn't happen all the time. But I guess if I did have to pull one out, it wasn't a masters race. It was 2014 National Short Course Champs. I was in the 200 breaststroke final. I had Chloe Tutton, who 2 years later came fourth at the Olympics, and Jocelyn Ulliott, who broke the British record eventually a few years later. And I was in the middle of the pool next to them. And yeah, they were a long way ahead of me. I think Chloe set a Welsh senior record.
Wow.
But I set a time that it's still my key lock screen on my phone. Like, I'm really proud of that time. That I just couldn't believe that at age 42 I'd done the time that I did, and I've spent the rest of the next 10 years trying to get near it again. So yeah, that's probably, I think at 42 years old, to be able to get to a time that was very close to what I swam as an elite swimmer when I was younger, I was mega proud of that. And I think it just shows you that when you're older, you can still perform. And I think people do fall into a trap of thinking, I've given up swimming, I'll never get back, I won't do the times that I used to do. And maybe you won't, but you can still have some fantastic performances. And particularly young men, they carry on gaining a lot of strength through the 20s. And I think we saw, particularly at the recent National Short Course Masters in Sheffield, people that hadn't swum for a long time coming back in and doing relays and just swimming absolutely phenomenal times that they couldn't even believe that they'd done themselves. So I think that's, I guess, something, just as a mindset thing of encouraging people to have a go, and you might surprise yourself, because I definitely did in that swim next to Chloe Tutton, and I'm not sure I'll ever forget that one.
I think one of the conversations that stands out for me was at the last event that we held in Swansea. I was talking to a gentleman who, I can remember his first name was Michael, but I can't remember his surname. One of you might know. But he was an older gentleman in his 80s or in his 90s who was talking to me about his swimming career. I could see Nicola nodding.
Yeah, Michael Reed.
That's it.
He's great. He's great.
He's fantastic. And I was so inspired and fascinated by his story of how he'd swum the channel and he'd done all of these different things and has such a fascinating career in swimming, and was still coming along and enjoying those masters events, getting that sense of community, still competing, well into his 80s or 90s. I can't remember his exact age, but that conversation has really stuck with me, just to show, we say aquatics for everyone for life within Swim Wales. And I think that's probably one of the biggest shining examples we can have of that is what Michael's still doing and achieving. And that's, for somebody who doesn't actively swim at these events, going to those events, hearing people's stories and seeing the benefits they're getting, long-term health benefits and everything. I think it's really inspirational. I think they're fantastic meets to be involved in and be a part of.
Yeah, I think sorry, I think we could be doing more with some of those stories.
Yeah.
I've actually got a Masters podcast and I try and unearth stories, and you've got people that swam in the Commonwealth Games and they've had a brain tumour and come back and broken British records. I spoke to a guy recently that had testicular cancer twice. He comes to our meets quite a bit, and just kind of the way that swimming has kept him motivated and healthy, and actually being able to know a little bit more about people will bring the sport to life. If you look at Masters as a whole, it can be confusing. There's so many different age groups, there's so many different events, but actually pulling out examples of individuals like the guy Michael we just spoke about, that's inspiring itself. And I think we've got a lot of very inspiring people in Wales and in the rest of Britain that are engaged in Masters, and I think storytelling is really, really important. So yeah, that's what I'm doing a little bit of on the Masters podcast. And yeah, I've really enjoyed just talking to people, and it's fascinating. People are really interesting, and people within our sport are fascinating.
Definitely. And I completely agree, Helen, that connecting with those stories and hearing what people have achieved, their motivations and the benefits they've had from it, it's only going to help us grow and strengthen, the aquatic sports that we all love.
Absolutely. I think that's a lovely note for us to wrap up on for this episode. So, Nicola, Helen, and Amy, thank you very much for joining. Really, really good topic and some great stories. So yeah, thank you very much for
Thank
giving me
you.
the time.
Thanks both.
Yeah, thank you.
Good to talk to you.
Really inspiring stuff there. Thanks to Helen, Nicola, and Amy for joining me on the podcast. Great to hear about where master swimming can take you and hear about the sense of community that exists within the sport, within the clubs and the competition as well. If that sounded good and you want to get involved or learn more, head over to swimwales.org or contact one of the team and we'll be happy to help. Otherwise, thank you very much for listening to Splashcast. As always, if you enjoyed this episode, please give us a like, follow, subscribe, wherever you're listening. And we'll see you next time on the pod. Thank you very much for listening. Diolch yn fawr.